the rest of our lives. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining me for a look ahead at 2017 and a recap of 2016, the CEO of Skywatch TV, Tom Horn.
Great to be here.
The lady who guides the important component of Whispering Ponies Ranch, the horse whisperer, Anita Horn.
Hi.
The host of Skywatch Women, forthcoming from Skywatch TV, and the co-host of Sci Friday on Skywatch TV every Friday. My best friend, my wife, Sharon
Hi,
Gilbert.
sweetie. Was that the great Criswell?
Oh, I think that was, yes, the amazing Criswell. Yes, very good. Spur of the moment, I forgot the name of the fellow, but we made all the rounds of late night TV back in the late 50s. He didn't get much right, but he was right about that.
He was right. We are going to spend our time in the future. He's right about that.
Well, 2016 was a really interesting year, and 2017 promises to be even more exciting if the Lord tarries. Mm-hmm. I know that, Tom, we've talked about this a lot around the table here at Skywatch TV, that this election cycle in 2016 has got to be the most bizarre that we've ever experienced in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely the most improbable. The idea that Donald Trump would become the president of the United States. I mean, wouldn't you have, I don't bet, but if I was a betting man, I would have been putting my money against him and I would have lost, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody else did. All the polling data and all that. Now everybody's saying what went wrong. We didn't have any of the polling right. And yet, you know, here at Skywatch Television for the last year, we've been talking over and over about how something is deeper. The whole Brexit vote, the rise of Donald Trump, something more important really is happening in terms of both society and culture. You know, why did people elect Donald Trump? Why did they vote? For one thing, for sure, it's a slap in the face of globalism.
Right.
But there's another element to it that reminds me very much of when I was young and I had hair everywhere, and it went way down to here too, right, by the way. And I was part of the hippie movement. And this reminds me much of what we were going through then, that it was anti-establishment, anti-Vietnam War. The younger generation didn't have a lot of faith in the government, so they were turning away from the government. You know, they're marching on Washington, D.C., and Nixon's got the water cannons out there ready to blow them down. And yet that movement kept growing. Some politicians suddenly started joining the marches against Washington. So there's that part of it that reminds me of what we're seeing under Donald Trump. People have lost faith in government. They were literally looking for an outsider. You take a guy like Donald Trump that's fairly inarticulate, certainly not a politician. I don't mean he's dumb. He's not dumb, right? But he's not a wordsmith either. So he didn't win people over by his wordcraft. What was it? It's the fact that he was an outsider. He wasn't another rhino. He wasn't a part of the establishment, and that's what they wanted. And he spoke to the grassroots. And so that kind of reminded me of what was happening in the late 50s, the early 60s. But there was also a spiritual dynamic.
Right.
And that is that, you know, people are wired to want to be submissive to a sovereign. We want to know that if things get out beyond our control, that we can call upon a greater power and say, help, right? And when we no longer trust the government and we no longer get up every day and say, dear government, give us this day our daily bread, the way we're wired, we're going to turn back to something else. And I remember in the 60s and 70s that what gave rise to what some people call the Fourth Great Awakening, the Jesus People movement, was among these anti-establishment types who are going to Woodstock and say, don't ask me why we're going to Vietnam, who cares, we're all going to die, right? But Jesus to them, not just because he looked like a hippie in all of our traditional paintings with his long hair, that didn't hurt, but he appealed to them because they saw him as God, they saw him as sovereign, but he was also the ultimate anti-establishment guy. He was anti-organized religion, he was anti-government, right? At least in their mind and in their theology. So it gave rise to what then became the Jesus freak movement and the Jesus people. And I see echoes of that now around the world. I see it here in the United States, that we are seeing the environment that could lead to another great spiritual awakening as well as a political one.
Similar things happened at the end of the 19th, early 20th century, and that led to the big awakening in Azusa Street that happened during the 60s and 70s that I lived through as well. Not only was religion changing and then moved toward a true faith in the Lord God Jesus Christ, but parallel in the 1920th and also in the 60s and 70s, the New Age movement and an anti-establishment, anti-religion, return to paganism. It's like the enemy knows in advance this is going to happen, a great awakening is going to hit, so I'm going to prepare the road beforehand. And Derek's writing a book that's talking about how going back to Eden, he's been doing that. But you wrote a book called Zenith 2016. How do you think 2016 actually developed compared to what you thought would happen?
Well, so, all these ancient seers, the whole book, Zenith 2016, goes into several dozen, some of these are prophets from thousands of years ago, some from a few hundreds ago. Jonathan Edwards, who was part of the first Great Awakening, also wrote letters that are now preserved at Yale University in which he predicted the Antichrist would arrive on earth, in his opinion, probably in the year 2016. So hundreds of years ago, Jonathan Edwards sees the Antichrist in the year 2016. So the book was written to say, why did all these different people, some of them pagans, some of them Christians and reformers, why did they think 2016 was going to be so important? Now the question would be, since 2016 is over, did they all miss it? Or is the man of sin on earth now and about to be revealed? Because in the Jewish, the Jewish calendar is different than our Gregorian calendar, right? And in the Zohar, these 700-year-ago, Jewish rabbis, they talked about, when is the Messiah going to appear? This is in the Be'era section of the Zohar. And they said, he will make himself known privately to the rabbis in Israel in the year 5773. Now that started in October of 2012 and went into 2013. Now I'm not saying this means anything, but at that very moment, guess where Donald Trump was? First, he said, I'm not going to run for president in 2012, but he goes to Israel. He's meeting over there privately with the rabbis. He meets with Benjamin Netanyahu. He goes on public television telling people to vote for Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party in their general election. It's on TV, right? You can Google this and watch it. Then he comes back over here. Within days, some of the rabbis say, the Messiah has made himself known. And people from around the world, Jews in exile, need to start returning to Israel now. They're even telling their rabbinical students, don't leave Jerusalem. The Messiah is here, and he's about to make himself known, right? Now, they have another prophet, highly regarded, Meir Horowitz, from 300 years ago, analyzing Daniel's time, and half a time. And he says the Messiah will make himself known publicly in 5777, which started in October of 2016, goes through September of 2017, right? So Trump gets elected. And immediately, what do you hear the rabbis saying? Return to Israel, the Messiah is here. But so partly what people need to understand is the Jewish idea of Messiah is different than the way we look at it. We look at it, Jesus is our model. We think of God incarnate. For them, it simply meant the anointed one, and it goes back to when a king would be appointed the political ruler over Israel. He would be the anointed ruler. So they're looking for a politician. They're looking for somebody that can win decisive battles on behalf of Israel. And I don't think that these guys, now the rabbis are saying, come back. They've already, the Sanhedrin is calling on Donald Trump and Putin to use their influence to build the third temple, so that the temple services can resume, which is one of the marks of the Messiah is here now, right? So the temple services need to resume. So there's a lot of strange stuff happening. I don't think, by the way, another headline from Breaking Israel News, that the Donald Trump election is being viewed by the rabbis as the start of the Messianic era. So a lot of stuff being said. I don't think they're saying that Donald Trump is the Messiah. And the way we would look at this is they're saying Donald Trump is John the Baptist. Donald Trump is the forerunner. He is the guy that is paving the way now for the public appearance of the Messiah.
So are you saying in the spirit of Elijah?
In the spirit of Elijah, but I'm also saying, so did all these ancient prophets that said this is going to happen in 2016, were they wrong? Or was in fact Messiah, as some of these rabbis have said, actually identified in the year 2016, according to their prophecies and some of these other prophecies? Well, because they reject, the Orthodox rabbis reject Jesus as Messiah,
Yeah.
we would say the man that they might be identifying would be who we would call the Antichrist.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
Exactly
And
right.
it's no coincidence, Derek, that we've seen Russia, this meme of blaming Russia, Russia evil, Vladimir Putin
Right.
evil. They are the ones that we need to watch out for. In fact, many are now calling, let's go bomb him.
Yes.
And
It's-
and yeah, if that is not prophecy fulfilling itself, what is?
Yeah, it's frankly, it's insane.
Yeah.
These calls that, based on unsubstantiated charges to this point anyway, that Russia interfered in our election, ignoring the fact that elements within the United States government have been interfering with other nations' elections for generations, that we need to go out and start bombing Russia, a nation that as of now, according to the Federation of Atomic Scientists, has got something like 1,800 operational nuclear warheads that are strategically operational, meaning they could fire them like that.
Well,
right now.
and they just did an article that Jane's Military, I think, did an article on Russia's new stealth submarine.
Right.
Yes.
That is carrying enormous nuclear warheads on it that could maybe even evade some of our detection technology and get within range of U.S. soil.
Is that the submarine that can pretend to be any other type of submarine?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Look, I'm friendly.
It's really amazing. And when you step back and you try to look at this and try to see how the principalities and powers are influencing what we read in the headlines, and see the globalist movement, which apparently now has hit a speed bump with the rise of the nationalist movement, not just in the United States, but in the UK with the rise of the UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party, Nigel Farage and that group, the Front National in Marine Le Pen in France and elsewhere around Europe, Hungary, Austria, Spain, other movements there that are rebelling against this globalist movement. If we see the drive toward globalism as an attempt to reconstitute the first world empire, the empire of Nimrod, from 5,500 years ago, and this natural rebellion against that, it's almost as like the human spirit understands that this is wrong. We are not supposed to live under a global leader. But sadly, most of these movements aren't being informed by biblical truth. As Christians, we understand why this is a bad thing, because this leads to the prophesied one world government of Antichrist. There are others who just reject it because they don't like being told what to do.
Right.
But without that spirit, that Holy Spirit, to guide the reaction and to inform this opinion, this sense, this feeling that something is wrong, ultimately the globalists will win the day temporarily.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I've actually been calling it sounds like a dichotomy. It is. I've been calling this a dangerous great opportunity.
Yes, right.
In that I mean that, we are in a fluid situation now where different visions could take us forward into a different kind of a future. It could be a great awakening, but don't forget that populism and nationalism also gave rise to Adolf Hitler.
Right.
Yes.
And so it could provide the foundation for the arrival of Antichrist, who comes in promising that he's going to solve all of these problems, and he's,
Right.
And maybe after the break, we should also bring up the issue of dominionism, because it concerns me that a lot of Christians now will say, "Oh, cool, we won, right? We can just go back to living our daily lives,"
Right.
and that would actually be a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a satanic lie that would keep the church from understanding the moment in time that we've been given, right? The real
Amen.
opportunity.
Yeah, and that's the danger, whether you're in the church or without the church. If we put our faith in the political system to solve our problems, we wind up with tyranny. We'll talk about that, and we'll get Nita Horn in the conversation, too, because we want to talk about what we've accomplished and what they've accomplished under her direction at Whispering Ponies Ranch in 2016, and some of the exciting things coming at the ranch in 2017. That's straight ahead on Skywatch TV.
Recently, Skywatch TV held a No Fences Tell Your Story writing contest. After hundreds of writers submitted their inspirational stories, 10 Skywatch TV judges worked together to narrow it down to 10 beautifully told accounts in the brand new anthology, Learning to Lean. Right now, when you purchase Learning to Lean from the Skywatch TV store for only $19.95, you'll also receive absolutely free Living a Supernatural Life. Find out how to live in the reality of the supernatural realm, attuned in mind and heart to God's kingdom, coming in power through the Holy Spirit living in you. Plus, we want to help you tell your inspirational stories, so we're also including free a brand new, beautiful spiral-bound personal journal. Put to pen and organize your chapters, thoughts, and outlines, or use as the perfect Bible devotion companion for jotting down your favorite scripture verses. Altogether, this Learning to Lean anthology special offer holds a retail value of $55. Now for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling at skywatchtvstore.com. Be inspired as you learn to lean on God's miraculous grace at work in our lives today with the Learning to Lean anthology special offer.
Skywatch TV has so much content we can't fit it all into our network schedule. That's why we have web-exclusive interviews and programs you can only find at skywatchtv.com. Interviews that we couldn't get into the schedule, but also daily news updates and look at the world of science through a biblical lens. Sci Friday, hosted by, my dad said, the smart one in my family, Sharon Gilbert, and Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck. Time travel, multiple universes, quantum mechanics from a biblical perspective. You'll find it at skywatchtv.com and the Skywatch TV channels on Roku and on YouTube. Very quickly, because I want to give Nita a short shrift here, but you raise a really good point, and that is dominion theology, which is a subset of American Christianity that believes that we are duty-bound to take over the world so that Jesus can return.
And this is a doctrine that seems to just kind of come around. Every generation has their own version of it. It used to be called Reconstructionism. Today we call it Dominionism. The idea that we lost our dominion over the world in the garden. Before Jesus can come back, we've got to reclaim our dominion. Now, in the very practical ways that this is sometimes played out, there's voter guides in the church. You can't, here in the U.S., we can't stand up from the pulpit and endorse a political person, tell people to vote for a certain politician. It might endanger the nonprofit. But what you can do is print a voter's guide that shows all of their positions, whether they're pro-life or not, that kind of thing, and then let people make their own vote. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's good. I think that, both as an American, I have an opportunity, if you could even call it a duty, to vote for moral good, to be a patriot. So I do all those things. I believe in all those things. The danger is when the church thinks that that's the beginning and end of their ministry. That we vote, we put these people into political office. It's now their job to impose morality or wherever they're coming from, right? And that's when it becomes dangerous because the church thinks their job is done. And when I said before the break, we don't want to miss the opportunity God has given us. This really goes to Paul's instruction to Timothy, where he tells him, pray for those who have the rule over you and kings and so on. But you got to read the whole passage. Why is he telling them to pray for those that have the rule over you? It's so that you don't live under tyranny. It's so that you have this good environment in which it's conducive to being preachers of the gospel of Jesus Christ, so that all men and women might come to the saving knowledge. That's why you pray for them, so that they'll get out of the way, leave you alone, not frustrate the work of the church, and let you be about the Father's business. His business is being preachers. What I would say to people is, if you doubt that, look at the life of Christ. Study the life of Christ, and look how much time he spent working towards getting politicians elected
on
to
voter
office.
Drives and political action committees.
And if you still doubt, read the book of Acts and look at the model of the church, right? What politicians could not do, they did. They turned the world upside down. Pagan institutions that were thousands of years old. Great is the goddess Diana. Within 150 years were delegated to the dustbins of history, and Christianity was sweeping the world. Why? Because I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation, right?
Amen.
That's the work of the church. We are to be preachers, and we are to make disciples of all nations. You're going to have Gordon MacDonald and Joel Richardson on a program talking about I Predict, and Gordon had written a chapter talking about convergence and technology. Isn't it something that we are living in a church age now where that gospel can be delivered to the four corners of the earth unimpeded as a result of new technology? We now actually have the tools to finally fulfill the Great Commission, which is the final prophecy, and then shall the end come, right? What a great opportunity. So we don't want to miss this. We don't want the church to think, cool, Trump got elected, you can all go back to sleep. No, you may have only been given a brief moment in time to steer the course and destiny of our nation and of the work of the church in a different generation. that could be part of a Great Awakening, which is how we started out this program.
Well, we have the Great Commission that we have not yet fulfilled, but we also have 2 rules that the Lord gave us. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love others as you love yourself. That's what Whispering Ponies Ranch does.
Yeah.
And I want to find out what you did in 2016 and where you're going in 2017.
Boy, there's an awful lot to cover, but just briefly as I can, and you got my back if I miss something. Right now we are working on, which is hopefully going to be completed here pretty soon, on we call it the main offices, and then there will be the dormitories and the lunchroom so that campers can actually stay on the grounds. And what's amazing about this building is that we kind of had drafted what we thought would be the one. And then God put us in touch with the Royal Family Kid Camp at the beginning of the year before all of the excavation and the groundwork began. And we were able to redesign this building based upon what they actually would need. So that to me was like, we had a plan, God intervened, and now we have a better plan.
Right.
So that's where we're at. They're just currently laying the plumbing and the electrical, and then they're going to start framing.
All the material is actually sitting there, and they're ready to start standing the building up right now. We have a really short leash we've put on ourselves. We're hoping to be ready before summer of this year to start running the first Royal Family Kids camps on that property, and we believe we're going to be able to get there. Partly this is due to people who have sponsored a pony. We're also calling this the Founders Club. And if people are interested in that, they can go to skywatchtv.com. Up at the top, it says Sponsor a Pony. They can click on it to read all of the details. But these are people that are becoming part of the support basis of this ministry. They're partnering with us, both to take television around the world, to preach the gospel in these very unique ways, using all kinds of media, our magazine, everything else we're doing. But Whispering Ponies Ranch is definitely a part of that, and this ultimate mission to be able to reach children who would be overlooked, as well as hurting adults. Now, we do have several things we're doing for the people that are sponsoring a pony. You know, our conference is coming up in October of this year. We outgrew the one in Denver, Colorado, so we've moved it to a facility that's going to give us twice as much room space and conference space. But we will be having a banquet at that conference that is exclusively for those who sponsor a pony, because we want to thank them for what they did. Nita and I will give a devotional. The president and founder of the Royal Family will also be there to talk to them, and we're going to be able to show them video and camping experiences as they're happening, so they will know that their investment in that ministry went for the cause that they gave it for, right? So we are also going to provide their registration to the conference. The only thing they'll have to do is get themselves there and get their hotel, but we're taking care of their registration for the conference, a banquet for them. And then thirdly, late in 2017, we're going to start having retreats at the Whispering Ponies Ranch exclusively for those people who sponsor a pony. So they'll be able to come. You know, we'll have to do this in small groups of 20 or 25 at a time, but we have accommodations now. And as you know, I built this giant 7,000 square foot house as a, it's
a huge house.
Well, it's partly that big because we needed housing for people to come on the program.
Exactly.
Because there's no hotels in this area. But we've decided we're going to move back into a smaller house, and we're actually donating that house as a lodge. And so there'll be 14 bedrooms plus full accommodations in the lodge. There'll be 17 rooms inside the original building that'll be done by that time that's going to house the Royal Family Kids camps. And we want the people that sponsor a pony to be able to come. Now, when they get here, they'll be here for a couple of days, right? We will take care of everything from recreation on the property to elements, certified staff, food services. But they're also going to get an opportunity for the new studio that we finally are going to build, right? Hallelujah, right? And that's going to house the women's studio. It's also going to house some of our other general television programming that we do. But that'll have space in it for about 25 live audience. So when the sponsor a pony, Founders Club members are here, it won't only be at Whispering Ponies Ranch. They'll come over to the new studio. They'll get to sit in on a live recording. And then we're going to get a city bus so that we can then take them over to Morningside, where we'll work with Jim Baker to have them in that live audience over there at times when some of our staff, us, Derek, you, whoever, doing programming with Jim Baker as well. So this will be a rich experience for them, exclusive for them, and kind of our way of saying, look, you've invested in this ministry. You're part of this family. We want you to be here. We want you to see what we're doing. And we want you to know that the investment began at the top and it stays at the top, that we're putting every penny of our own money that we can back into this ministry. We're not asking people to do something that we ourselves won't do. We're leading by example, and really appreciate the people that understand that and that are investing in this ministry.
Isn't it nice that you decided to retire?
It is. I've never worked so hard at retiring in my whole life, right?
It's funny. My dad was the same way when he was retired and got to working with a ministry at the church they attended down in South Carolina, and he said it was the best experience of his life. And time is short. We can only work with the time that we've got left to us. And last year, one of our guests, and I think some of the most important programs we did were with the ministry Opal Singleton of millionkids.org, working with children who are being trafficked. Royal Family Kids, working with children who are in foster care because they're coming out of situations that were abusive, dangerous, harmful. And Whispering Ponies Ranch is there to provide a place where Royal Family Kids can work with these damaged children and bring them to a place of healing and maybe work in them the types of stories that we read about in the book Learning to Lean.
Absolutely.
And so I can tell you honestly that we are honored to be here, and it is just a joy coming in here every day knowing that ultimately, in spite of all the laughter that goes on, that we're a very, very serious purpose, and it is absolutely in accordance with what God has called us to do.
Amen.
Well,
Right,
never
so we're
moves
just
fast
thankful
enough,
that we're
but
here.
we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every member here, I mean, this has all been handpicked. Everybody that works here says this is something God is doing, because Tom Horn was certainly never smart enough, right, to assemble this crew. No, we all know that it's a God thing. We feel privileged to get
Very
to be a
much.
part of this ministry family and every opportunity that God has given us. You mentioned Royal Family and Opal Singleton. We got permission from the Royal Family. There's a movie based on that ministry called Camp, and we got permission from the producers to reproduce that. And so what we're doing right now, every time people buy a book or anything through our ministry, that of course is going to underwrite these ministries. Those purchases are, but we're starting to drop into each one of those just the movie Camp, and we're hoping that when people get it and they go, "What is this?" Sit down and watch this movie seriously. Then you will really understand the ministry of Royal Family and why we have a burden and a heart to also want to participate with them in this ministering to these children.
Amen.
And as we look forward to 2017, that is really at the top of our priority list. And we thank you for taking the time to partner and being led to partner with us in this mission. For Tom Horn, Nita Horn, Sharon K. Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert. We thank you for watching as we keep watch. This is Skywatch TV.